Welcome to It Starts With You, where we cut through the noise and get real about the behaviours that shape our lives, both personally and professionally. I'm Vic O'Farrell. Let's jump in because behaviours start with you. So here we are on our next episode, and I am delighted to be joined by the wonderful Simone. In my usual way, though, rather than me introduce you, Simone, would you like to introduce yourself to the viewers, listeners, let them know who you are and what you do in this amazing world?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so Simone Fenton Jarvis. I'm the co-founder at the Human Centric Workplace and co-author of the newly released book, The Human Centric Leader. I've been working in FM and workplace for about 20 years now. My role now is to work with organisations essentially to make the workplace better for the people in it. And that could be the physical workplace or the digital virtual world as well.
Wonderful. So yes, you're probably thinking, oh, we cross over, and we absolutely do. I think we complement each other because we both come from that same part of, you always talk about being a good human.
Yeah.
Um, so what do you mean, and what is your take on what does it actually mean to be a good human?
Yeah. So when I wrote my first book in like 2019, 2020, we were in the middle of a pandemic. And when it was released in like 2021, I think the thing, like as I signed the book off, I wrote Be a Good Human. And it just kind of stuck with me. And I've challenged myself a little bit and gone, what does it actually mean to be a good human? And I think the things that I've landed on is firstly intent. So you've got to intend to not do any harm, and to actually have a positive influence on people around you, the community, the planet, just the intent, it's got to be there. And I think another good thing, another thing that comes into being a good human is self-awareness and how you develop yourself. And I think that ties into the intent. I don't think you can be a good human if you've got no self-awareness, because you just don't know what influence you're having on those around you. So I think they're the two main things that I've landed on is intent and self-awareness.
Mm. And I think people who are listening or watching are probably thinking, well, we're all good humans, aren't we? And the thing is, we only see the world from our own perspective, from our own viewpoint. And so if we don't have that self-awareness piece, we might think that we are being a good human, but we have no understanding of the impact that we're having on those around us. If I look back and I think of, if we just talk about personalities, which is the foundation, as you know, of what I do, I look at my extreme yellow
Yeah.
and I look at back in the impact I would have had in the workplace. Great for some people, absolutely awful for others. But I had no self-awareness.
Yeah.
So how do you help people to create self-awareness?
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in coaching and therapy as well. I think, there's only so much I can do from the other side, as you'll know from the work that you do. But I think it's got to be just that kind of creating a safe space to just hold a mirror up. And I think that's the thing that, I'm quite new into my official coaching life. I've always been a mentor for years, but I did my coaching, my level five, fairly recently. And what I've really enjoyed is I'm good at creating that safe space, and I generally kind of try and build rapport with people. But from a coaching point of view, the hat that I've put on around just giving people that time, to just kind of reflect, think out loud, question themselves, be challenged by me, and to just sometimes just kind of be like, I'm not in on this on my own. And I think that bit around self-awareness is massive. And I think, the therapy bit as well, again, just understanding the why your brain works the way that it does and understanding patterns, talking and then somebody saying, actually, have you linked it to this? And, just them kind of, I think you've just got to focus on growing yourself and understanding yourself. And I think it's got to come from within you in the first place, which is tricky.
I know, and I absolutely hear you. So creating that safe space for somebody to do that deep work, But it does take, whether it's a coach or a therapist or even just someone that you feel comfortable with, it takes for someone else to kind of prod that little niggle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because none of us like criticism. Human
No.
nature, we don't like being criticized. So we get very defensive, don't we? So say, me and my husband are a classic for it. If I criticize him, he's very blue in personality when we're working together, and he will just put up the boundaries. It's really hard in a situation like that to try and get somebody to go, no, 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 no. I'm not criticizing.
Yeah.
Just need you to know the impact you're having on me. How can leaders make a difference in the workplace? Because people will say, "Oh, I can't tell my boss that. Oh, they're more senior than me." How do we get these people who are in these positions to understand their own impact?
Yeah, it's really tricky, and I've obviously, before I worked for myself, I've been on the other side of that, and it's really, really tough. I think there is an element of you can only change what you know about, and actually, if someone is having a continuous impact on you in the workplace, and they don't know, then that's one matter, and I think that is then you owe it to yourself to then speak up, which is difficult when you think, well, I'm going to get sacked, I'm going to get put on the blacklist, and all that kind of stuff that you kind of your brain jumps to. But if they don't know about the impact they're having on you, then you're setting them up for failure in a way because they can't change their behaviors. Once you've told them, if they continue, that's a whole different matter, and I've got a certain word for them type of people. Um,
I
but
might need to bleep
it's
that word out.
yeah, exactly. That's why I didn't say it. I was well behaved. But I think we owe it to ourselves, and I think it takes. I'm going to say it takes age and experience to get to that point. In my younger years, I put up with a lot, and I think I just got to a point of going, actually, I deserve better than this. Come on, like I'm going to speak up now.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, if they don't change, you change your boss. Change the
Yeah.
person, change the boss.
Well, it is, isn't it? I know I can think of again, definitely age and experience of actually. The thing is, it's knowing how to approach it. You kind of take that Johari window, don't
Yeah,
you, of known to self and not known to others and all that kind of stuff. And you think, right, how do I approach this that is going to get the best outcome for
yeah,
both parties?
yeah,
Because there is a way to do it.
absolutely. Communication skills are like so underrated because it'd be so easy for us to kind of like blurt out why you treating me like this and for it to be quite kind of like accusatory, kind of like you can get into parent-child relationship and it's actually how do you tease and how do you coach and mentor above, sideways, downwards. It's a skill, and I think that comes with the age, confidence, experience bit, but actually trying to get them to reflect in questioning rather than you accusing. You've got to kind of like massage an ego to some extent, and you've got to kind of like, I'm trying to help you at the same time here. Have you thought about this? And it's the questions that then they walk away and think, oh, yeah, actually, yeah, fair enough. Because I think I used to think that certain bosses were just idiots, and I think looking back now. I think actually, firstly, they didn't know any different. And also, I think they were just caught up in the moment of leading and actually not knowing any better. And I think actually, once you've got to a point of thinking, I'm going to think the best case scenario here rather than jump into the worst of they're an idiot, I think you can just deal with it a little bit better. So I think, yeah, I go on the premise now that 95% of people are being a good human and the 5% will deal with them.
You mean the 5% that are dicks?
Yeah,
We can,
exactly.
it's my podcast. We can say that word.
Exactly.
It's fine. But it's how do you help people? Like for example, if something happens in your life, pressure comes from everywhere, um, and lots of things can impact us. That impacts our behavior.
Yeah,
How can we help people to understand that their behavior has changed and it's not what we would normally see from them without again, it's you can't do it in that kind of like everything all right, you'd
yeah,
be a dick. You
yeah,
can't say that because we don't know what's going on.
yeah.
not everybody's a trained coach like you and me.
Yeah.
So how do we get people, and how do we give those tools to people to say, either recognize it in yourself or how you can approach someone who isn't behaving normally?
Yeah, I think one thing that I've done in the past is, try and I'll either, depending on how much I know the person, I'll either say, should we grab a coffee? Or, for one person in particular, I said, I fancy getting outside. Do you want to go for a walk? Because I think using that psychology of when people are walking and also side by side rather than in front of you. So I think that opens people up a little bit. And I remember going for a walk with a colleague and I just said, um, I hope you don't mind me saying, but this morning you came across maybe a little bit different than normal. Are you okay? And I remember saying, like, what do you mean by different? And I said, this is only my opinion, so take it with a pinch of salt. I'm not saying it's the truth, but I found you to be a little bit kind of snappy, and maybe a little bit more kind of you look a bit like drained. So, what is there anything I can help with? And she was like, "Oh, thank you. Like, yeah, I feel like that because," and she went on to tell me a story about a child that was kind of like going through neurodiversity assessments and she'd been really torn all over the weekend and she was just tired. And I was just like, yeah, you just don't know what's going on in other people's worlds. And I think the thing that I learned that day was like to ask the question and not assume, and give people space because actually sometimes you just caught up in the next meeting, and the pace of the organization. And actually, for someone to take you to a side and just go, care, like, let me just give you a bit of time to just get it out there. And actually, she said, like, she went, I felt loads better for just talking about it. So, yeah, it's
And
how you approach it.
the definite part is definitely talking. And there are people in this world, we're both opposite each other in terms of the personality style of things.
Yeah.
But talking to the right person, some people just will be like they don't want to talk,
Yeah.
but actually giving someone that safe space and allowing them to just offload, because we don't want to bring the outside our external problems into the workplace.
Yeah.
But if they're impacting our behaviors, we need to know, first
Yeah.
of all,
Yeah.
and we also need to know who it's impacting and what we can do about it. So
Yeah.
if you know that you're behaving differently, if you know, because quite often we do, don't we, come in and we go, I'm just in a really
Yeah.
ratty mood and I'm just going to
Yeah.
bite everyone's head off.
Yeah.
Let's hit pause for a second so I can tell you how I work with leaders and teams to turn behaviour into results. If your team's stuck in the same old patterns, it's not just a skill gap, it's a behaviours gap. My multitude of workshops break those patterns and build stronger, more productive teams. It starts with you, and together we'll make it happen. Yeah, that's called menopause.
Yeah.
It's a whole other subject. I've done some recordings on menopause. Go back and look at the one with Dr. Nancy Allen. Um,
Um,
but no, when we know we've been, it's really hard, isn't it, to actually
oh,
slap yourself and say, "Come
yeah.
on, get a grip."
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
do? What is your top tip for snapping yourself out?
I'm shocking at it. So I'm not really a talker, surprisingly. I can talk to other people, but about myself, I'm just like I'll just get on with it. I think there's just an element of this Britishness of keep calm, carry on, and I'm like under the surface, I'm like, ooh. It takes a lot for me to talk, which is probably why I pay a therapist because it's that space. But I think the thing that I always do like is I know I've been an idiot, and I'm like, oh, God, I'm such an idiot, and I try and avoid beating myself up about it because I'm like, no, everyone's a human, it's fine, and I'm like, and I just have to go back to that person and say, I'm sorry, I'm being a pleb, like this. I'm just a bit ratty or I didn't sleep very well or whatever. And I think there's the doing it and then there's how you fix it, like the rupture and repair bit. I think in the moment of how I snap myself out of it, I have to either go in the garden and just do some digging, some grounding, like whatever it is. It depends how I feel, or go to the gym or get a coffee and just, I think for me, I've realised I just need processing time.
Mm,
And if I try and continue as normal and just be like, no, I'm just going to fight this, I'm just going to be stubborn and carry on, it just gets worse. I just need to step myself out of it by resetting myself.
mhm.
So I've found like I've definitely grown my self-awareness over the years, and I think now it's like, yeah, I just need to take a step back and take a breather. I think the best thing we can do is when we're feeling irritated or doing whatever is to just avoid other people until you can snap out of it. And then you just almost like damage limitation.
Yeah, absolutely. But that isn't always possible. So if
No.
you're in a meeting, I'm
Yeah.
not talking about a board meeting or anything like that. Say you're in a meeting and there's someone in that room that's really irritating you, and you know that actually I'm in a really snappy mood today. You
Yeah.
can't just step out
No,
and
you can't.
dig up the corridor. I've now just got pictures of Simone with a shovel. How do you diffuse a situation like that?
Yeah. Um, so if they're being, I generally, I think I'm an empath, so I look around the room, and if I can sense other people are also struggling, I think I almost feel a little bit more confident to then step in. If it's just me, I go through this process of going, what is triggering me about this situation? Like, is this a me thing or is it a them thing? And if they are just being a bit of a dick, then it's like, right, okay, how do we then manage that situation? And if I get a sense of the room, and I've been in plenty of them where you could cut the atmosphere with a spoon, and you think, right, I'm gonna do the right thing here, and I'm gonna just break this tension. And I think at that point, I'm thinking of a situation in particular where I stepped up and just said, can we just pause? Let's just recap on everything that's just happened and how we would move forward. And I think just that pause and everyone, like, I've done it a few times and you can almost feel everyone go, thank God for that. Do you know, like someone just gets on a bit of a rant and they just very like, rah, 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 and then you're like, let's just pause a minute. And it was that situation that just came to my mind then. So I think, again, almost giving them a chance to reset their behavior.
Hmm.
And then afterwards, I'll then also always try and talk to them and say, do you understand why I paused that meeting and took a step back? And I've had to do that with senior people, and it's really, really difficult. And it's really, you feel really vulnerable and everything. But I just think if I don't do it, who else is going to do it to the point of the same way? And also, it's me that's getting irritated. So I owe it to them to give them a little bit of a nudge about their behaviours.
Hmm.
It's tiring though, it's really draining. It's risky. So you just gotta approach it with caution, I'm gonna say.
Yeah, because not everybody is going to welcome pausing
Yeah.
a meeting. Not everybody is going to welcome feedback,
No.
because that's just different people's personalities, values, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But actually, if you're the person that is being a bit of a dick in a
Yeah.
meeting, and someone says, "Can we just pause this?" For me, I probably my first reaction would be like, oh, just all get over it and
Yeah.
but then there'd be the other part of me, my yellow personality, fearing rejection, will be going, oh my God, I've upset everybody. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I've upset everybody. And I need to just run and hide.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
actually just that pause is very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
can we teach people to do that
Oh.
in a safe way?
In a safe way. I think have your toolkit of words. Like, I think so. One thing that I do every Friday, and I've done it every Friday for years now, is like I've got like a reflection. I ask myself certain questions at the end of a working week, and it's like, right, what's gone on this week? What's kind of fueled me? What's drained me? Is there anything that has irritated me? What do I want to learn? What do I want to carry into next week? I've just got these set questions that I just kind of do every single Friday. And I think I remember in one role, these things kept coming up and around. It was this one person in meetings who I was like, and after about 3 or 4 weeks of writing basically his name down, I just kind of remember looking back and going, I'm gonna have to sort this. And I think what we can do is, firstly, we understand what's triggering us. Um, Ask yourself the question, why is this person irritating me? Why do I think this person's a dick? Like, ask yourself that question, because it could be you. And I think that's important to recognize as well. But also, I think have a toolkit of questions and methods that you can use to stop. So, if it's a virtual meeting compared to a in-person meeting, that's again very different. You can always just pause, mute them and kick them out of the meeting if they were too bad, but not advisable. Tempting, but not advisable. But I think, it's creating yourself a toolkit of actually in these situations, I get triggered by X, Y, Z. How do I help myself in that situation? And if it is that someone's on a rant, for me, I'm like, can we just pause a minute? Because I'm like, and also it's probably a bit personality type because I'm a reflector. Like, if there's too much stuff coming at me and I like to prepare, I like to have a clue what's coming up. If it's just all random and it's not put together, I'm like, can we just pause a minute while I was connect the dots? Because I have no idea what you're talking about. And actually, I think it's framing it in a way of it's me that wants to pause, and it helps the situation to diffuse it. Because if it's like, can you just stop a minute? You're being an idiot. That is not going to help.
No.
But it's can we just pause a minute? Let's just recap. Then I understand what you're saying, and it's try and frame it, and just have these little phrases that you can use, to help yourself.
Mm. And that's about changing our habits, isn't it? And we all know that habits you can change. You can
Yeah.
absolutely can change.
Yeah.
I have absolutely learnt that my very extreme yellow eye style in the disc terms can also stand for irritating. So I've learnt that pause, but it
Yeah.
is habit forming. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
tend to find some other extreme yellows quite irritating myself now. Um, but but when you think back at all the places that you've worked, obviously you're running your own business now, co-founder. Congratulations to you and Louisa. It's fabulous work that you're doing.
Yeah.
If you could go back and give your, say, 23-year-old self some advice,
Yeah.
what would be that piece of advice?
Um, to have more confidence in yourself. You're not the idiot in this situation. Don't question yourself as much as you do. I think that's what I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And based on the fact that you've just been talking about asking yourself, what's triggering me about this? What's triggering me about this? You
Yeah.
clearly still hold a lot of it from, it's me.
Yeah.
But how have you turned it so that it's not all consuming?
Yeah. Um, I think putting the work in yourself again, like with therapy and coaching and reflection and just I think taking responsibility. And kind of going like, okay, I can see where these things all connect, and I can see why I'm getting irritated by that situation there. And now I'll look back and think, okay, yeah, okay, I was irritated because of that, but actually they were still an idiot as well. And
Mhm.
it's, I think, having a bit of compassion with yourself as well, and kind of going like, I can't control how other people behave. I can control how I react and how I soak it in. And I think I soaked too much in when I was in my younger leadership days.
Right.
When actually it was like, actually, that's not my crap to take with me. That's them. So I think yeah, that definitely like you almost have to like put a bit of a zorb ball around yourself and kind of go, I'm gonna choose what I let in because I don't need to take everything in and I don't need to fix everybody.
No. And I don't need to take everyone else's advice on me because we know full well if I ask 10 people what their favorite color is, I'm going to get 10 different answers.
Yeah.
I might get a blend of some colors.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
someone's listening to this or watching this and thinking, I've got someone in the workplace that really irritates me, and I think that they irritate quite a few other people,
Yeah.
but I really don't know where to start,
Yeah.
what would you say would be the first step?
I'd say depend on the organisation. If they've not got things in place around learning development, I would go and suggest to, the team what, could we put things in place to build self-awareness within the team? And I'd come at it from a macro organisational point of view first. If there's not an or if there's no appetite in the organisation to do them things, then it's how can I work with that individual? And I think it'd be an element of either, again, depends on the relationship. I'd either go and say to that person, I'm looking for a mentor. Would you be interested in mentoring me? Because I think what that can do is, as much as you might have the most awful 1 hour of your life, you start seeing things from their perspective. And I think that's half of it is understanding why they react. And I think there's a lot of power in reverse mentoring. So I think the reverse mentoring bit, and it's not, you could say some people might go, that's very manipulative, but it's not. I think it's about how you persuade and influence in the right way. So it depends on the personality. You could either do that, or you could just say, actually, can we talk about that last meeting? I found I got a little bit irritated. Can we talk about what might be irritating me and see how open they are? And you've also got to accept at the same time, when people say feedback is a gift, it's not really. If you don't want it and it's at the really crap time, it's not a gift. And there's nothing worse than a shit sandwich, actually, when you're on the other side of it, because you can see it coming a mile off. So like it's like don't just have a bit of more authenticity with it
Yeah,
and actually say, can we just talk about it? It's not I've got some feedback for you, because that's very again like parent
patronising.
child.
Mm.
It's like actually, can we just talk about that because I want to move forward?
Yeah, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Even as a professional speaker,
Yeah,
I can come off stage and there's always one person, and you can see them coming. They want to give you a bit of advice as a professional speaker, and it's like, can I give you a piece of advice? I'm like, no, actually, I don't need. And I've actually, so I never, when I first started out in my speaking career, I was like, oh, absolutely, I need to grow, I need to learn. Tell me more, tell me more. But it's a bit like, again, asking 10 people. If I've got 100 people in the audience, I take away the top 10 and I take away the bottom 10, because they're going to be those people that love you and those
yeah,
people that hate you.
yeah,
You want
yeah,
the middle people. So it's also, like you say, don't go to say, could I give you some feedback? But
yeah,
also be aware that if somebody comes up to you to say, can I give you some feedback? Say, well, not really, not now, but if you want to grab a coffee at some point and
yeah,
discuss some stuff, let's do that.
yeah.
I'm
Because it
being
also
open.
gives them the chance to reflect on what they were going to say. Because it's easy to give feedback in the moment and for it to come out a bit wrong and a bit kind of like, "Ugh," and it's about them rather than you. So actually, if you say, I haven't got the time now, but could we maybe grab a coffee tomorrow or whatever, it gives them chance to kind of like settle, reflect, word it properly. Most times people just don't say it then, actually, they just don't bother. So it's like, well, it couldn't have been that urgent then, could it?
No, exactly. I think I said it to one person once as I came off stage, and they said, I'd just like to give you a piece of advice if that's okay. I was like, oh, sorry, is my skirt tucked in my knickers? What? I'm like, is that kind of advice? I've got my skirt tucked in my knickers. No, I said, well, then I don't need it.
Yeah,
And I've got really good at doing that.
yeah,
It depends. I mean, if that was a random person from the audience, I had no
yeah,
idea who they were. If I want it, then I generally will say to somebody that I know that's either in the audience, or I will ask a mentor or a coach or a speaker friend, could you come along, make some notes? I'm giving a new keynote and I just want a bit of feedback on it.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a way to do it, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I know we could chat for hours about not being a dick and being a great human, and actually some people that we've worked with in the past that could really do with some coaching and some therapy.
Yep.
But if you could leave, if somebody's sitting there thinking, "Oh, what piece of advice would be the one thing that you'd want people to go take away from this conversation?"
Yeah. Um, Intent. Yeah. Understand yourself and understand what you stand for, what are your values and what's your intentions. How do you want to show up in the world and kind of how do you do that day to day as well? I think that's the best thing that we can do because I think it stops the whole incongruence bit where you kind of like you put up with certain things and then you start changing your behaviors to suit the situation, and then you start hating the situation and then you question yourself and then you're like, now what do I stand for? Because I've changed that much because of the environment I'm in. So I think actually, understand yourself, and don't be afraid to change if it's not working for you.
Mm. Look at the ripples that you're spreading in the world.
Yeah, because honestly, like years ago, I remember sitting with you and going, I want to do something by myself. I just don't know what that looks like yet. I don't know. And it was a lot of imposter syndrome going on. And I think I just put a lot of work in. And now I'm doing it. I'm sitting there going, oh, wasted years. I should have just done it. And it's like, I actually no, I just now I realize it's the time and you do it when you're ready. You know when you're ready.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I remember having those conversations with you.
Yeah.
You're ready. And some people might think this sounds woo-woo, but the universe aligns
Yeah.
when you're ready for it. The universe is already aligning, but it's only when you're aligned that you
Yeah.
can see everything line up. So,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
oh, Simone, thank you for your time. Now, I'm sure there'd be people listening and watching thinking, oh, I need to get hold of Simone and I need to read this amazing human-centric leader book. I haven't started it yet, to be honest, because I'm in the middle of another book.
Yeah.
And I will make sure that I've got all of your details. Please do look in the show notes. Please do look up Simone, connect with her, and go and find out what she talks about a human-centric workplace.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. Thanks for
My
listening,
pleasure. All
everyone.
right. Take care.
Yes, thank you.
Well, that's today's dose of truth. Now go make it happen because behaviour drives behaviour, and behaviour starts with you.